Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everyone. We'll begin the press conference after the statements of the ministers. We'll leave some room for questions and answers. Good morning. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to warmly welcome to Rome my friend and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Anita Anand. This is our third meeting this year after the meeting in Washington on critical minerals and the G7 meeting, which was held in Munich on Saturday. And last year, instead, we met at the G7 during the Canadian presidency. There's a very strong dialogue. Relations between Rome and Ottawa are very positive indeed. We're part of the transatlantic relationship or alliance, and the transatlantic relationship for us is very important. It's not just the U.S., but Canada that matters too. And today, when we reviewed the initiative on critical minerals, Italy and Canada are two industrial powers that are export-oriented, and that's why we can't afford to be penalized by the prices of raw materials. Our beacon is a shared vision of the free market, loyal and fair competition, clear regulations, and protection of our businesses. During the Canadian presidency of the G7, the action plan of the G7 for critical minerals was launched. Italy is also amongst the main partners of the alliance or partnership for the production of critical minerals with the focus on recycling technologies, which I reiterated recently in Washington. We want to bolster collaboration amongst the G7 countries, and there's another matter which is extremely important to us and to Canada. We discussed this at length today, and that is the situation in the Arctic, because climate change, security, energy, and research are critical issues to us. Italy intends to be a leading player in that part of the world. Canada already is because of its geographic position, and I think that we can work together on that front. We've also invited Canada to participate at the government level at the summit that we'll be organizing at the beginning of March with Minister Bernini on the Arctic. And so I'm confident that we are going to be able to work very hard on this. We're only observers in the Arctic Council, but we will continue to work very intensely on this front. We agree on many, many matters. We also talked about the situation in the Middle East and in Gaza. We wish to work for peace, to build stability throughout the Middle East. We also discussed the situation in the Indo-Pacific area. We would like to maintain the status quo as Italy. We have a privileged relationship with India, Japan, and Korea. And for India, I once again told the minister that we'd like to highlight the corridor that will connect India all the way to Trieste. I also received an invitation to travel to Canada, which I accepted very graciously and with great pleasure, because we're going to work very hard on exports. We'd like to organize a business forum on energy as well, and in the next few days there will be a parliamentary mission that will leave Italy and that will visit some nuclear power plants in Canada. And we're very interested in this area, the topic of nuclear energy. As you know, Italy has chosen to be competitive industrially without lowering the cost of energy, and that's very difficult to achieve. So we'll have a lot of areas to work on with Canada, and I'd like to thank the minister, and I wish the hockey team of Canada the best of luck. I know that your family is involved in hockey. You're a lot stronger as a country. On our team, we do have some players that originate from Canada, both in the women's and men's team. And so it's really important for us. But Canada is always stronger in hockey. Welcome, and we wish you a pleasant stay.
Well, grazie mille, Ministro Tajani, per la sua ospitalità. Sono molto felice di essere qui.
I'm very happy to be here, and thank you very much, Minister Tajani. It is a great pleasure to work with you.
Thank you, my friend Antonio, and Prime Minister Meloni, for your thoughtful words after this tragedy that occurred in British Columbia. In these difficult moments, gestures of solidarity from friends like you mean a great deal to Canadians. Tout d'abord, je tiens à remercier la Première ministre Meloni pour ses paroles bienveillantes après la tragédie qui s'est déroulée au Canada cette semaine. En cas de moment difficile, les gestes de solidarité comme ça, de la part d'amis comme l'Italie, ont une grande importance pour nous, pour les Canadiens, Canadiennes. And the reason that we are especially grateful is that Canada and Italy share a deep, enduring friendship rooted in common values, people-to-people ties, and a shared commitment to democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. We are also sophisticated, innovative countries who are networked internationally to our citizens' advantage and for global prosperity and stability. Last month in Davos, our Prime Minister spoke about adapting to the changing global landscape by working more closely with reliable partners, strengthening our alliances, diversifying our economic partnerships, investing in innovation, and defending the rules-based international order. And as we build this new way forward, we are looking particularly to trusted partners like Italy. Today, Minister Tajani and I had a very productive conversation. We are pleased with the progress in implementing the Italy-Canada roadmap to advance joint efforts between our countries. We are committed to deepening our multifaceted partnerships and translating them into increased strategic collaboration in trade and investment for our mutual advantage, particularly in defense and security, natural resources, technology, and innovation. And we thank Italy for supporting Canada's ascension to the SAFE, which was finalized in Munich just a few days ago. Canada's recent trade mission to Italy is generating solid opportunities for businesses in both countries. And we look forward to welcoming Italy's trade mission to Canada later this year. And of course, dear Antonio, I look forward to welcoming you for a bilateral visit as well. We will pursue more opportunities to keep the momentum strong. I already mentioned SAFE, and of course, we want to continue capitalizing on the Canada-EU Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement. Finally, we discussed the importance of collective approaches to international issues, including our mutual, unwavering support for Ukraine. Nous avons vu qu'il y a de leadership sur l'étage mondial de l'Italie, et ça c'est très très important. Nos pays travaillent ensemble dans l'OTAN, le G7, les rencontres du G7 et aussi l'ONU, et ça va continuer. I welcome the opportunity today to reaffirm with Minister Tajani the many ways that our countries can deliver results for our citizens and contribute to a more stable and prosperous world. Grazie mille.
Apriamo ora ad alcune domande.
Let us now have questions. The first question from Aji. Minister, could you give us a few details, extra details on cooperation on the Arctic, and what is the role you expect from Italy, which has already a presence, a scientific presence in the Arctic? I submitted to the minister our plan for the Arctic, which was concluded a few weeks ago, we would like to strengthen our presence politically, militarily, to guarantee security and trade-wise, because giving climate change new routes will open up. Our country is strong in terms of export. This represents 30 or 40% of our GDP, and this is particularly significant, of course. This was embodied in a number of projects and within the Arctic strategy by Italy, together with the Minister for Defense. We illustrated this project, and we gave the minister the integral text of the project because we have every intention of working with the countries involved. They are countries sitting on the Arctic Council, but we too can play a significant role.
The importance of the Arctic for Canada is absolutely fundamental. 70% of our coastline and 40% of our overall territory interface with the Arctic. And so the work that we will continue to do, ramping up our defense spending, $80 billion in the last federal budget, ensuring that there's dual-use infrastructure, cooperating in the confines of both NATO and NORAD, putting additional infrastructure in the northern operational support hubs, procuring more icebreakers, ensuring we have over-the-horizon radar systems, and really addressing all threats from air, land, sea, and subsurface is Canada's priority. We have an Arctic foreign policy, and I was so pleased to see and hear about Italy's Arctic foreign policy also. Prime Minister Carney indicated in his Davos speech that now is the time, more than ever, for like-minded countries to come together to cooperate on areas of mutual interest, where we can advance our individual and collective interests. Today is an example of the thesis that Prime Minister Carney was putting forward. Both Minister Tajani and I agreed to continue our work on Arctic security, as well as on defense and security through NATO, on support for Ukraine, on the Middle East, and the issues in Gaza. Those are our priorities as countries working together, including in the Arctic. Thank you.
La prossima domanda, Giorgia Bentivogli, ANSA.
Giorgia Bentivogli from ANSA.
Both of you, Mr. Tajani will be a reporter in Italy tomorrow about the Italy's presence in the Board of Peace. So my question is, we will be observer. What are the reasons behind this question, this decision? And why do you think this position is not against our constitution? And in what capacity will be there? So are you going? And for Mr. Anand, I will ask why your country decided not to be in the Board of Peace.
Shall I go first? We received an invitation to be part as observers at this meeting that focused on Gaza. The government felt that we should be part of that meeting as observers, not as participants, because it's not possible as participants, because under Article 9 of the Rules of Association of the Board of Peace is in conflict with Article 11 of our Constitution. So we would not be able to participate as full members of the Board of Peace. But thanks to the position of the UN Security Council, and tomorrow there will be a discussion in Parliament about this, and that's why I'm going there to explain, We will be doing that because we've already given a lot for Gaza. We're continuing to give our utmost for Gaza. We are a Western country, or the Western country, that has taken in the largest number of children and refugees from Gaza, and we rank third in the world in terms of having assisted the civilian population of Gaza. The program for Gaza was a cutting-edge program that met with the consensus of Palestine and Israel. We're continuing to invest. We're ready to train the new police forces and the Carabinieri forces too, as well as the Palestinian law enforcement, which we're already doing. We're ready to increase the number of our Carabinieri forces as we've done in Rafah. It's a European project because the stability of the Middle East is of paramount importance, especially if we consider that a large part of trade, maritime trade, goes through the Red Sea. So the Red Sea and the Mediterranean are of great interest to us, and peace building is crucial in such a delicate area of the world. That's why we want to play a leading role, but we are observers because the European Commission has decided to participate, not as a member, but it will be part of the Board of Peace meeting. There will be the European president attending, and because we're part of Europe, we felt that it would be a good idea to send the Italian representatives as observers at the Board of Peace.
Canada was disinvited to membership, to being members on the Board of Peace, but I want to stress that our foreign policy vis-a-vis ensuring that the ceasefire will yield benefits for both Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace and security side by side continues. And in particular, we believe in many of the tenets of the peace plan. Hamas must demilitarize. Hamas must have no role in the future governance of Palestine, and that Palestinian state must be demilitarized. So that's on the governance side of things. Canada will continue to ensure full-fledged efforts for humanitarian aid for the people of Gaza. We have already committed $400 million in humanitarian aid. This includes food and medical supplies and pharmaceutical products for the people of Gaza. And we are very pleased with the phase one part of the peace plan, where we have seen hostages, including their remains, may their souls rest in peace, returned. We would like to see phase two continue, including, as Minister Tajani said, the Rafah gate being open so that humanitarian aid can flow through. So the bottom line is our foreign policy continues. We continue to support the work of the Palestinian Authority, and we also wholeheartedly will stand behind the humanitarian aid that we've committed thus far, and I will look to do more.
La prossima domanda, Donato
Next question, Donato Mancini from Bloomberg.
Sir, welcome to Rome. Thanks for taking my question. I wanted to reference the beginning of your remarks today, in which you obviously spoke about your Prime Minister's speech and how middle powers should be strengthening their alliances. I wonder how that was done today. Were there any sort of conversations around defense that you can tell us about? Was there anything specific about critical raw materials that you can tell us about? And I was wondering if you saw Rubio's remarks, Secretary of State Rubio's remarks this weekend as a sign of détente or not, if you see relations with the US improving. E la stessa domanda al Ministro Tajani, se le nostre relazioni, le relazioni dell'Europa in generale.
So, same question for Minister Tajani. Is Europe and the U.S. relationship improving, or will it improve? And are we interested in having stronger relations with other middle powers, as the Prime Minister of Canada hoped for?
I'll start, and thank you for that question. We've both just come back from the Munich Security Conference, and in almost every conversation, Prime Minister Carney's speech was mentioned, debated, discussed, fortified, to the extent that people were using the term the Carney Doctrine. The Carney Doctrine can apply to bilateral relationships as well as multilateral relationships. In our meeting today, Minister Tajani and I discussed both the Canada-Italy bilateral relationship and then what we can do as like-minded multilateral partners around the world. The bilateral relationship between Canada and Italy is strong. The last 24 months have yielded unprecedented discussions. Building on tangible results, bilateral merchandise trade has reached $16.8 billion in 2024 between Canada and Italy. That's up 73% compared to pre-CETA levels in 2016. So on trade and the economy and investment, we are seeing tangible results, and Minister Tajani and I agreed that we need to do whatever is necessary to ensure that that trajectory continues. That will include a trade mission to Canada, followed on hopefully by a visit by Minister Tajani to Canada, where we agreed to discuss these issues in further detail. Please note also that a trade mission from Canadian businesses to Italy has occurred in the very recent past, and as we speak, Canadian and Italian critical minerals producers and suppliers are meeting. I just came from that meeting and spoke at it, and we are seeing synergies and deals, essentially, that will result from those meetings. Defense cooperation was another issue that you mentioned. I would like to underscore the importance of Canada as the only non-European country joining SAFE. That agreement allows Canadian defense industrial companies to compete for contracts on the same footing as European companies. It is extremely important, and I thank Italy for supporting Canada's ascension to the SAFE. So I've given you three main bilateral examples: trade in the economy, energy and critical minerals, and defense cooperation, as key markers of the strength of the bilateral relationship. And lastly, I will say the geopolitical hotspots from Ukraine to the Middle East and Africa are areas where Canada and Italy will continue to cooperate. The Carney Doctrine is finding pragmatic evidence in the relationship between Italy and Canada now and in the future.
Le relazioni tra
The relationship between Canada and the U.S. Have always been strong, quite independently from the heads of our administrations. The U.S. and Europe are the two facets of the same unit, quite beyond whatever people say. I remember a speech from Mr. Barroso when Mr. Obama was President of the United States, which said something similar. The situations change, but Europe needs the U.S. and the U.S. needs Europe. So I believe that the unshakable relationship between these two countries cannot be posed into question, because there may be differences on this or that issue. Of course, we are interlocutors of the United States. We Italians always try to make sure that we can work towards the unity of the West, and the relationship between the EU and the United States can always progress. The US is one of the priority interlocutors, which has always been the case. There are other countries such as Canada, which are privileged interlocutors. Canada is one of the countries that we are focusing on when we speak of exports, for example. And given the changes that have been brought about because of tariffs, relations with Canada and other countries, I'm thinking of India and others in the world. There are many with which we have relations, Japan, South Korea. Well, and the Gulf countries are those countries. It's obvious that our trade policy is across the board. We have friends everywhere in the world. And this does not mean that the relationship with the United States has a problem or vice versa. Last question from Antonio Moscatello, Asca.
Recently, there's been talk about the possibility of an agreement, a free trade agreement between the EU and Europe, therefore, and the TPP countries, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. I'd like to ask you both ministers, have you delved into this issue because of the common threat of tariffs and greater protectionism? Is this a context that you find possible? In other words, forging alternative free trade areas and partnerships? Does this seem to be like a feasible prospect in the short term? We are the second European country in terms of trade with Canada. We are always in favor when it comes to bolstering free market. My dream would be to have a free trade market between Europe, Canada, the US, and Mexico. So anything that fosters free trade for a country like Italy can only be positive. So anything that we can do to move in that direction, we will. Of course, trade agreements are within the competence of the European Union. But anyway, I strongly believe that the free market is something that can benefit all communities.
Well, thank you. Our view is broadly aligned with that. Let me be more specific, because we ourselves are a Pacific country, and we are deepening our own engagement throughout the region. We are looking to finalize a free trade agreement with ASEAN ourselves in 2026, for example. Prime Minister Carney has been supportive of this initiative, and indeed in South Africa in the G20, we both had meetings along these lines. I will say that quite apart from the issue of the global supply chain being completely rewired as we speak, Canada believes in multilateralism. Canada believes in collaboration on economic, defense, security, and environmental measures. So to the extent that EU membership in the CPTPP increases economic multilateralism and the ability for countries to mutually benefit from complementarity in global supply chains, yes, Canada supports.
Chiudiamo qui la conferenza stampa, grazie per aver partecipato, buon lavoro.
Thank you.